Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Wild, Wild Death, the show where we talk about all the ways that people went belly up in the Old West. Each week, we'll spin the wagon wheel of untimely demise, and whatever mode of death it lands on, we'll tell you a story about it. I'm Susan Busa-Leschner.
My name is Jack James Busa.
And I'm Leslie Sinali. Hey, you guys, are you ready? I'm excited to spin the wagon wheel of untimely demise today.
Where do you even fit this wheel in your house?
I'm spinning. Get ready. Here we go. All right. Today's mode of death is death by gunshot.
Okay, I have one for death by gunshot, but what's more interesting is what happened after.
Okay, that works.
Tell the story.
This is the tale of one of the last and definitely one of the worst outlaws in the history of the American West. In life, he was a failure, but after his death, his body had quite a career. This story is called The Afterdeath Life of Elmer McCurdy. Elmer McCurdy was born on New Year's Day, 1880 in Washington, Maine, to Sadie McCurdy. His father was unknown, although it might have been a cousin of Sadie's named Charles Smith, keeping it in the family. However, Charles wasn't on the scene to be a father figure, and Sadie was only 17 and unmarried. And in those days, was socially unacceptable and not a good way for a little baby to start life. In order to spare him the shame of being labeled a bastard, Sadie's brother George and his wife Helen adopted young Elmer. But eventually, Sadie told Elmer the truth. No trauma there. She was his mom, and she wasn't sure who his father was. How fun for Elmer. This pretty much screwed with Elmer's head. He started drinking, and as a teenager, he began to develop a reputation as the town drunk.
Wait. As a teenager, he developed a reputation as the town drunk?
Oh, yeah, he was over it. The teenage town drunk. Sadie was real proud. Eventually, Elmer settled down enough to become an apprentice plumber, and things went pretty well for a while. But often, in life, there came a time when things went to crap for Elmer the plumber. In 1898, there was an economic downturn. He lost his job, and a couple years later, his mom died. Elmer started moving around a lot, picking up work as a plumber and sometimes as a lead miner, but he was still a heavy drinker and as a result could not keep his job.
Left, right, left, I don't know my right.
Elmer was probably looking for stability when he joined the Army. He was stationed at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, where he was a machine gun operator, which is great for the town drunk to be. He also was shown how to use nitroglycerin. Good decisions all around. I wouldn't say he was trained how to use nitroglycerin, but he definitely learned that nitroglycerin would blow things up. Get ready.
Oh, dear.
It was after Elmer left the army that he embarked on his short career as an outlaw. His method was to move to a town, get some work as a plumber, connect with the criminal folks in town, and then plan some sort of robbery with them where Elmer would be the explosives expert. Evidently, nitroglycerin was fairly easy to get way back then. But we'll be talking more about nitroglycerin in another episode. Back to Elmer. Here's a list of Elmer's activities as an outlaw. Number 1, McCurdy was living in Lenape, Oklahoma. He heard that one of the cars on an Iron Mountain, Missouri Pacific train was carrying a safe with $4,000 in it, which at the time would be a lot. On March 24th, 1911, he and 3 other men decided to rob it. They stopped the train, located the safe. So far, so good. But McCurdy put too much nitroglycerin on the safe's door.
Of course he did.
No.
The safe was destroyed in the blast and melting most of the silver coins. McCurdy and his partners were able to get away with $450 in silver coins that were not destroyed in the blast. Number 2. On September 21st, 1911, McCurdy and 2 other men robbed the Citizens Bank in Chautauqua, Kansas. Or they tried to. They pounded a hole in the back of the bank wall with a hammer. This took about 2 hours.
So there's brick or wood or whatever it is. So they go there in the middle of the night and wail away on the back of a building with a hammer. This is how we're going to get in here. And nobody shows up to go, what are you doing? That is amazing to me. But just think how long that would take. Damn.
Well, the thing is, I'm sort of impressed that it only took 2 hours. Like, how many hammers did they have? So they're pounding on the back of the bank with a hammer. They're like, this is a brilliant idea. I have nitroglycerin in my bag, but you know what? Hammer. Sure. When they were finally inside, McCurdy put nitroglycerin around the door of the bank's outer vault. The blast pretty much blew up the vault and most of the bank, but it did not damage the safe inside. So they learned from last time. So McCurdy put some more nitroglycerin around the safe door. But this time, the nitroglycerin did not explode. The lookout man got scared, he ran off, and the only thing McCurdy and his accomplices managed to take was about $150 in coins from a tray outside the safe.
Oh,
So all that for nothing.
Well, the smartest person in there is a lookout guy going, see ya, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
Cut his losses.
He's the one who brought the hammers. They fled the scene and they split up, and McCurdy went back to Oklahoma. Number 3. McCurdy's final robbery took place on October 4th, 1911, near Okasa, Oklahoma. McCurdy and 2 accomplices planned to rob a KT train transporting $400,000 in cash. Woohoo. But evidently, McCurdy and his crew stopped the wrong train. I kind of love him. There was no $400,000 on it. All there was to steal was a gun, a coat, the train conductor's watch, and $46 from the mail clerk. A few gallons of whiskey, too, which I'm sure Elmer was, pretty woohoo about.
So they got a clock and a coat, some cash, and some booze.
A few gallons of booze, so, it's not that bad, but it's not $400,000.
Did anybody figure out that how did your last robbery go? Right? Well, evidently not. Okay.
No. Yeah. There was no vetting process in this band of disgruntled brothers at all. So anyway, later, a report in the local newspaper about the robbery called it, quote, one of the smallest in the history of train robberies, end quote.
Dissing him in the paper.
Wow.
Shady paper. McCurdy wasn't pleased about the haul either. He probably should have hightailed it out of there, but instead, he returned to the ranch where he was staying, went to the barn, and started to drink the gallons of whiskey.
Of course.
What else are you gonna do? In his coat and watch, going, that wasn't so bad. This paper is just, oh my God. Anyway, it wasn't too long before the sheriff came out to arrest him. By this time, McCurdy was very drunk, and he refused to come out of the barn to surrender. He started shooting, the sheriff shot back, gunfire was exchanged back and forth for a while, and eventually Elmer took a bullet to the chest and died. That should have been the last time anyone ever saw Elmer McCurdy, but his story was just getting started.
I can't wait.
Yes, so To recap, he's just had a horrible lot in life. Yeah, like bastard kid, this and that job, drunken when he's a teenager, awful, not even a cool train robber, no joie de vie about his train robbering whatsoever. He gets drunk, he dies. Okay, here we are. After he died in the shootout, the local undertaker, a man named Joseph L. Johnson, picked up Elmer's remains and embalmed them. And he did an incredible job using, with an arsenic-based embalming formula, essentially mummifying Elmer McCurdy's corpse. But when no family members showed up to claim Elmer, Mr. Johnson decided to try and make his money back. For a while, Johnson put Elmer's body up on display, and he charged viewers a small fee to look at it. Ew. But eventually, some men showed up claiming to be Elmer's relatives. They paid Mr. Johnson and took Elmer's body away. And that should have been the end of Elmer's story. No, it's not. It turns out the men who picked up Elmer's body from the funeral home were not his relative. They were businessmen, and their business was carnival sideshows.
Oh my gosh.
So Elmer's body started traveling around the sideshow circuit, where he was displayed to the crowds under various names, including the bandit who wouldn't give up and the outlaw who would never be captured alive.
Well, sort of true. Both of those are true.
Yeah, sure. Eventually, the outlaw thing stopped drawing crowds, so Elmer's body received a new identity and put back in the sideshow. This time, he was a depraved addict who died from an overdose of drugs.
Woo!
Poor Elmer. His new role, anyway. So here's here's where it gets really fun. Over the course of 65 years, Elmer's body was passed from hand to hand. In addition to the sideshow, Elmer's body was used as a prop in silent movies, displayed as a depraved addict who died from an overdose of drugs, and used to promote a film. He was a part of the display at Mount Rushmore. He was stored in a closet and exhibited at a wax museum.
Wow.
Somewhere along the way, Elmer's body was painted red.
What?
And by this time, his mummified corpse was looking pretty beat up, having lost some fingers, and as well as he lost some fingers and toes, and also the tips of his ears.
Oh, well, gosh.
In the early to, I don't know why I'm laughing.
Well, I mean, just to say, if you've been passed around that much and you've been that busy, he's in remarkably good shape.
For sure, that Mr. Johnson did a very good job of embalming his body. And I guess he didn't stink the way he did it as well, because
let's just don't go there, honey. Let's just don't go there.
Okay. Just saying, he had a really good career in showbiz. In the early to mid 1970s, the owner of the Wax Museum sold Elmer's body to an amusement park area called the Pike in Long Beach, California. At this point, Elmer's body was assumed to be just like a wax mannequin, not ever being a human being. And he was hung up as part of the Laugh in the Dark exhibition at the Funhouse. In 1976, a very famous TV show called The $6 Million Man was preparing to shoot a scene set at the Pike. Crew members were moving funhouse props around when a dummy hanging man lost an arm, revealing human bone inside. That dummy was none other than our friend Elmer McCurdy. They're moving, these guys on the crew were like, yeah, man, we're working on this dumb show, like whatever. Oops. And they see the bone inside. The longest shower ever would have to happen after that. So it took some investigation to figure out who the body was. At first, they thought it might be some 1,000-year-old mummy, but the
Well,
presence of arsenic. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that would be cool, but you know, it turns out that the presence of arsenic in the embalming proved that it wasn't. Then somebody claimed the body was none other than Jesse James, but that was disproved as well. Eventually, through investigation of bullet jackets that were still in the body, the type of embalming method, radiographs of the skull, and a 1924 penny and ticket stubs in the 140W Pike sideshow, and to the Louis Sonny's Museum of Crime that were found in the mouth, the body
whoa.
was positively.
Uh,
Wait. They
in
found
the
pennies
mouth?
and ticket stubs in the mouth.
Yeah,
That were
people are rude.
50-year-old penny and ticket stubs. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, they were like, I'll leave this here, and one day someone will discover them.
Wow.
So they've all of these things together emulsified in the identification of the body belonging to Elmer McCurdy.
That is amazing that they could figure that out. That is amazing.
I don't know how they would, because it doesn't sound like he had too many records about him. I mean, he's like an outlaw, and
That is really incredible.
Am I the only one wondering how much the Pike circus or sideshow or whatever it was paid for that mummy?
Probably not very much.
Like $30 or something?
Or maybe it was just part of a whole collection of stuff. Who knows?
I probably honestly, it sounds like it just was passed along. Like, yeah. I mean, I'm sure it was, because think about this. For some of this, he must have been sitting in some sort of like prop house. They're like in the heat, or like they're driving him around in the back of a truck or something,
Exactly.
and nobody knows. I mean, like, you just think it's like a mannequin. In 1977, Elmer McCurdy was finally laid to rest in Guthrie, Oklahoma. He was buried in the Boot Hill section of the Summit View Cemetery, right next to the grave of the outlaw Bill Doolin. After the burial, just to make sure that Elmer's body would not be stolen, 2 feet of concrete were poured over the casket. Elmer McCurdy would not be going anywhere ever again.
That sounds like a challenge to me.
I'm really happy for him. Oh, Leslie, let's do it. But you know what? I'm kind of happy for him, because he was such a loser, and he has this weird epic tale that probably has not
Yeah.
happened to anybody else. Like, it's kind of a really messed up sweet story.
He wasn't forgotten. He's a guy that could just disappeared into history.
I know.
But instead, this thing happened. Now, whether or not he knows about it, is nobody can ever know, right? But it also said to me, listening to this, and it shows you really how important is your body after all.
I guess to the $6 million man prop crew, very important.
If you want to know more about this story, there are links in the show notes, and you can find us on social media at The Wild Wild Death.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Adios, muchachis. Mwah.
The Wild Wild Death is a 2222 media production.